Hey man, everything's bigger in Texas. You know it's big when I'm chopping it up with Buck.
So much I can't even barely count it. I feel like I'm Giannis ballin' with these bucks. Who they talking? I don't really give a fuck. Shawty thick, but she got a tummy tuck. Two girls and they
All right,
perfect.
welcome to Chopping It Up with Buck. The new season finally back. We got my man Scottie Rodgers. Saw him a few weeks ago at the ACC kickoff. We'll talk a lot about that. But I'll just say this: it's been good catching up with you, Scottie. He is the vice president of communications with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, a game that I played in many, many years ago. But Scottie, how you doing this, man?
What's up, Buck? Good to see you. It was good to see you in Charlotte and glad to catch up here.
Yeah. Well, hey, I just wanted to ask you, talking season now is over. You were at the SEC Media Days, I think Big 12, ACC. I don't know if you made it to the Big 10. You might have. I know you were all over the place. Tell us about your observations with all the different media days and kickoffs that you were able to attend.
Well, you mentioned three of them. I was also able to catch the Pac-12. They did their Pac-12 After Dark with their Washington State and Oregon State, and also the Mountain West out in Las Vegas. So, everybody does it a little bit the same and a little bit differently as far as how they present their coaches and student athletes to the media. I think that's what media days is all about. I think also, as you know, Buck, it's a content gathering opportunity for the conferences, for them, for the conference themselves and their broadcast partners, whether it's ESPN, Fox, whoever they may be working with throughout the course of the year. Talking season is just as busy as anything. Granted, everybody gets into fall camp in August, but from our media perspective, it kind of dies down a little bit from a national perspective. Now, granted, people are covering fall camps, but then before it really ramps up with games about a month later by the time the last media days happen. So it's a fun month to be around the country seeing folks, and glad that it's over and glad that we can be at this stage right now getting ready for the season that's going to be here before you know it.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things, the Pac-12, now the Pac-2, right? You have Washington State and Oregon State. So they can focus on those two teams along with a little bit of the Mountain West. The ACC goes all the way to Stanford and Cal now. I mean, SMU is a part of it right in your backyard. You look at the Big Ten now with my former school, our crosstown rivals, USC, and then you also have Washington and Oregon. There's still talk. This thing is ever evolving, and I don't think people should just say, "Oh, we're here." There's a lot more at stake. We just have this right now where we're at.
And there's so much more to go. I mean, these teams are in the conferences, but they have to get settled in their conferences and they have to go through a season and scheduling, not just with football, but with all the sports. And in the bowl world, especially for us that is in the group that most call the New Year's Six, we're evolving as well in this 12-team playoff that's coming up. We've been doing a lot of work and having a lot of conversation, and we still got a lot more to go to get ready for this season and get ready for this new postseason that we're gonna run into with a first round, with the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the national championship. On a different schedule. It's a lot, and
Yeah.
I've used this term, Buck. Some people may not like it, but I like it because I think it represents what we're dealing with. From our perspective, we got to modernize our traditions. I think that's really important to use modernize and traditions in the same phrase because we want
Yeah.
to make sure to keep our traditions in many ways. And we know that because of the new playoff, we may have to move away from certain things. So we may not have the time in the bowl week schedule or in our calendar throughout the course of the year, but we can modernize them in a way that still keeps them where we want to keep them. And maybe we have to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and merge it into something new and something different, but it still represents who we are and what we are and what we want to do. And I think that's really, really important. And we're trying to do that. And I'm sure our other bowls, New Year's Six bowl brethren, is trying to do the same thing. And I think that's really important. And we're going to continue to keep working on that. And hopefully, I know we're going to present something fantastic when we have the opportunity to host a semifinal this year on Friday, January 10th. Which is going to be in front of the national orders with all eyes on us. It's going to be, a wonderful Friday night under the hot lights in Arlington and AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be something else. But it's we're all learning something new. We're all having to get out of our comfort zone. We're all having to think differently, and that's a good thing. That's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. It's definitely challenging. Can't lie.
Well, but you bring up, I mean, and I love that term, modernized tradition, but the Rose Bowl doesn't sound like they want to leave January 1st. They have been staunchly against some of the college football playoff expansion, even when it went to four. So how is that going to impact them in this new world? Because I don't think 12 is the end. I think there's going to be more. Let's settle at 12 and understand how that works. And there's all kind of nuances. But if they don't want to leave January 1, how does that move other bowls around? How does it impact the Cotton Bowl?
One of the things we've said in this whole process is that we want to be a good team member to the entire process. So whatever the college football playoff wants to ask from us, we're going to be ready to do. We're going to be ready to do whatever. I mean, everybody saw it 3 years ago. Now, if you can believe that was 3 years ago when we had to host the Rose Bowl game 2 days after our Cotton Bowl game. So I think that really shows who we are as an entity, because we found out about that the day of the Big 12 championship game. And, you're talking about basically a month later, we're hosting our game, and 48 hours after our game, we hosted the Rose Bowl game. That was not something we were planning to do or really even wanted to do. But when our friends were in need, the phone call came to us, we answered, we accepted the challenge, and we went out and did it. And that right there, frankly, shows who we are as a Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. So whatever is going to come forward in this new structure, 12 we're working through right now, whatever happens beyond that, we're going to be ready to be involved and be engaged and do what we do best, is put together one of the best, most innovative postseason bowl game experiences that we can put out there for the coaches, for the student athletes, for the administrators, for the fans, because like you said, you played in this game, and I'm sure when you get with your Bruin buddies and y'all start talking about, y'all still reminisce about something that happened during your Cotton Bowl Classic week. And we want to make sure that in this new world, these current student athletes and future student athletes that's going to play in our game going to be able to have those same conversations 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years after they play in our game.
We're still talking about that. One of the stories I think I shared with you is that about before we left, I'm from Houston. My roommate was from Houston. We had a bunch of other guys from Texas and had Texas ties. We told the guys, hey, when you get to Dallas, there's going to be some pretty women there, right? Just be aware. 2 or 3 of our guys ended up having girlfriends from the Cotton Bowl that they met in Dallas and subsequently married after that. So we told them, watch it now. We understand that. And then the other thing that you just brought back to my memory is we knew Troy was going to be a first player pick. The late, great Gil Brandt was at every practice. We were all trying to impress and show and prove so we could. I can remember vividly that whole contingent for the Cowboys being there ready to, sink their teeth into getting Troy as the number 1 pick. So we all were trying to impress, which is what you do as a young player. I think the big thing for me was all the events that we had. We were upset because we didn't make it to the Rose Bowl, having gotten beat by USC. But the experience that we had that week was phenomenal. I go back to that too, something you said about the college football playoff. Some of these teams are only going to have 1 or 2 days in the town, so it won't be the same experience that we were able to get in bowl games, and then also how some of these guys are getting bowl weeks and excursions and different things. How do you package that much quicker as a Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic?
That's been the question that we've had, and that's what we've been working on behind the scenes to try to do that. We understand in our bowl experience for our CFP semifinal coming up, it's going to be a 3-day, 2-night experience for the teams. They're going to come in on the 8th, and the game's on the 10th. And obviously they're going to leave either right after the game or early the next morning, because our game kicks off at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, so 7:30 Eastern. So with that, we're going to have to be extremely creative in how we present that to them. I think a lot of what we're looking at is
what are some of the things you guys are kind of looking at, Scottie? I'm just curious about that.
Well, I think one of the things we got to look at, because of the shortened week and the inability for the teams to get out into the community, how do we bring North Texas to them, meaning
Mm,
to their hotel in their
yeah.
hospitality space? Because honestly, we understand that in a semifinal, even in the previous setup where we were a semifinal every 3 years, because this will be the fourth time that we've hosted a semifinal. The first time I was shown at this 12 team. So every third year, we knew the bowl experience was going to be a little different because it's a little bit more of a, as many people say, a business trip. And now it's going to even be more of a business trip because look, you got a team coming off that's played on either New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and now they're playing again on January 10th, 10 days, 11 days later. So what we got to be able to do is figure out how we can make sure that the experience that they're going to be able to have, and it may be within their confined space that's at their headquarters hotel and in their hospitality room. How can we bring things to them so that they can get a good flavor and a good sense of, because let's be honest, they're going to come in town, they're going to come into the airport, they're going to go to the hotel, they're going to go to the stadium, they're going to go to the hotel, they're going to go to the stadium, and then they're going to go home. So that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, that's just the nature of what it is.
From your perspective, name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal, how has it impacted bowl games and just college football in general from what you see?
Well, it's impacted our games in a different way, and I think the impact may be different going forward. I mean, let's just use last year. We had a situation we had Missouri and Ohio State, and some of Ohio State's top players didn't play. Missouri, that game was really important for them, so their top players did play. Who won the football game?
Missouri. Yeah.
So, that is part of it. The same thing happened to us a few years ago. Florida had a number of players that didn't play the game. They played against Oklahoma, who won that game. And it was not close in that game. Oklahoma won by a lot. And I think
Florida
it's
State last year in the Orange Bowl, right? I mean, you can look at a lot of different factors of how many guys were out, key guys that missed. Yeah.
yep. And in our New Year's Six bowl games, the 6 games that are going to be quarterfinals and semifinals, and the games that's going to be played on campus for the first round, our players going to come at it differently because now they're playing for a championship in those
Hmm.
opportunities. I don't know about the other bowl games that's not a part of the playoff, and I don't want to speculate about those. I can only focus on the ones that I know that we're involved in. And I think, should it change the perspective, meaning should a player probably not sit out because they're playing for a national championship? Probably so. But you never say never on stuff like that. So I don't know
Yeah.
what to expect. It's going to be challenging, and with some of the NIL deals that some of these players have, it's making them reconsider leaving at the time that they're leaving, from just learning that, hey, I might make a little money here, but I can make a little money, stay in college, get my stock up better, and then go out the next year, maybe go out the natural year that they should go out and go into the professional ranks. And I think, that's not my place from a bowl perspective, but just as a college football fan and a college athletics administrator that's been around for a bunch of years, I think that's part of the positives of what NIL is supposed to bring.
We'll take a quick break on Chopping It Up with Buck. We'll be right back with Scottie Rodgers.
Join us each week and a new celebrity guest on Chopping It Up with Buck. Brought to you by Thin Energy, thinenergy.com.
The COVID situation and COVID pandemic really changed college football also. And I don't know if we talk enough about that when guys were getting those extra years, being able to then go back and say, I can go for my 6th year, my 7th year, my 8th year in some cases.
Buck, I ain't gonna lie, I was just a regular student. I wasn't a student athlete, right? Like you. I'd love to have gotten a 5th and a 6th and a 7th year to stay in college. But looking back on it now, I would take that in a heartbeat, because those years that we have in college are just so special. And I think some folks that get out early don't realize. We realize it now because now we're looking way back in the rear view. Those years, those 3 or 4 or 5 years that you're in college, you're going to talk about them for the rest of your life. you're going to talk about every single story, every single thing that happened, whether it was in a class, in a social setting, the sport that you played, whatever you might have done as a part of that, is really something. And I think sometimes younger folks want to speed up getting to where we are as adults. And I tell young folks all the time, don't rush it. You got plenty of time to be an adult. So
Well,
I think that's really
yeah,
important.
it's interesting too. You talk about not playing sports. What made you want to get into this profession and make it a career? I mean, you just won the College Sport Communications President's Award, I think 2 out of 4 years. So you're doing something right.
Well, Buck, my athletic career ended with junior varsity baseball in high school. So unfortunately, at 5'6" and not very coordinated, I didn't have some of the athletic gifts that you were blessed with, and many others like yourself. So I got involved in high school writing for my hometown paper, writing sports because I wasn't playing, but I enjoyed it. At the time, I didn't know. I didn't know if that was going to be the thing I was going to do, but I got involved and got engaged and ended up going to a journalism camp at Alabama prior to my freshman year. Ended up doing well at that, and 3 weeks later, I went back for orientation. And said, you know what, I'm a major in journalism. So I wrote a little bit for the student paper. My first year at
Hey, what did
Alabama.
you guys doing at the journalism camp that made you say, I can do this? I can compete with these guys from all over, or ladies. What was it? What was it that they had you guys doing there?
Well, I got really fortunate. We as part of this 2 week camp, they taught us a lot of different things, and the end result was we put together a small little newspaper. We learned how to design and write stories and things like that. Well, my story was judged the best story, and I wrote a
Ah,
story about we went down to Selma, Alabama, and I wrote a story about how sports helped with the integration, because when you are young, you don't look at sports as a place of racism. You just want to play with good people. You want
yeah.
to play, you want to play with the good guys that are out there, no matter what their ethnic background is. And that's the essence of the story that I wrote. And that story ended up winning best story, and my layout ended up winning best layout of that camp. And really, it just made me realize, like, okay, I might have something here. So when I went back for orientation, I went and officially declared to be a journalism major. Like I said, I wrote for my student paper my freshman year. But between my freshman and sophomore year, I was back home writing for my paper, and I got a call from the Alabama Athletics Department and the Athletic Communications Office about a student assistant opportunity for the fall. Went up and interviewed, took the opportunity. Well, that fall was the fall of 1992. And if you know anything about college football, fall of 1992 was a
Yeah,
historic year. Um,
yeah,
for Alabama football. Alabama, ended up winning a national championship. It was the first year of the SEC championship game. I got to
yeah.
be at the SEC championship game. I'm 19 years old, and I can tell people the exact day that I know I wanted to do this job, which was January 1st, 1993, which was the Sugar Bowl between Alabama and Miami. And the last 8 minutes of that game, I got to be on the field. I was in the press box during the game with my credential, but the last 8 minutes, I got to be on that field. And I distinctly remember a moment at the end of the game, the iconic visual of Gene Stallings being carried off on the players. In one version of that video, in a small piece of the corner, you can see actually my glasses, and I'm looking at myself in the Jumbotron at the Superdome. And at that moment, I realized, like, I don't understand everything about working in sports, but that's what
Yeah.
I wanted to do. What I was able to do is learn how to communicate about different sports, because from day to day, in a day, I might be talking about 4 or 5 different sports and the things that I'm doing. So to be able to switch, the style that you write, using the terminology of the sport, diving into the sport and understanding
Yeah.
everything about it, that was really important. And over time, I figured out I had a skill in doing that. Larry White was at the time the head of the communications department there, and he gave me that opportunity to be a student assistant. And then that opportunity came. Well, the year went down, and he gave me the opportunity to go to the SEC championship game, to the Sugar Bowl. And one of the most unique things that happened this past year, was my fourth Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic to work, but it was my 25th, fourth on staff, but my 25th to work because I volunteered with the game for 21 years before I was brought on full time. And I was able to get Larry and his wife, Sandra, to come back and work our game. And, it was a full circle moment. And it was something that I had wanted to do because to show him, hey, this young guy that you gave a chance at 19 years old went out and took that chance and really and took it to heart and got the bug. And look what I've done. So, I kind of wanted to be able to show him like, hey, you did right by me, folks in his position all over this country, give young people an opportunity. And not all of them pan out, many of them don't. But I just want to show him because he gave me that opportunity. And then moving on to the Southeastern Conference, which was my first job out of college with Mark Whitworth and Roy Kramer, the legendary Roy Kramer, and Charles Bloom, giving me the opportunities that I got there to come in as an intern and ultimately get promoted to full time, and ultimately getting a chance while I was there to go and volunteer for the Cotton Bowl. They gave me that opportunity. Folks like Mark Womack, who's still there at the SEC, gave me the opportunity as I moved up in the communication staff there.
Well, we do a thing called 2-minute warning. We ask a few questions. Get your first impression. Don't have to think about it. And it's almost kind of like you're in a 2-minute drill trying to march down the field. So I know you've been around a lot of 2-minute drills, so this would be fun for you. What's your best brisket in Texas or in the Dallas area?
Ooh, man, you can't say best brisket. You start naming out stuff, you're gonna get in trouble. Well, look, I in the past month, I've eaten Terry Black's twice. Pretty good brisket. Hurtado in Arlington is.
I haven't been there. Haven't been to that
brisket. There's Hutchins Barbecue is also, and there's some that like Hard Eight as well. Yeah. So,
I've been there too.
Good brisket is hard. Man, that's a hard one. They all have something good, and I will eat as much brisket as I can from as many places as I can. But those
I'm an equal opportunity brisket connoisseur, right?
Hey, absolutely. Anybody want to give me an NIL deal on brisket? I'm in.
Hey, you and I both. We'll travel the world and we'll act like we can cook it and we'll judge it. How's that?
Absolutely.
Hey, you made me laugh because I just got finished reading Jay Dilla's book, and whenever he was getting ready to say something, woo, he just did that. Man. Well, okay, I got one for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Alabama white sauce or Texas style barbecue?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't remember Alabama white sauce as much growing up. I don't know when it all evolved as much. And honestly, I have not eaten it as much as you would think I would as an Alabama native. So I'm going to go with Texas barbecue sauce because I've had a lot more of that than I had Alabama white sauce. But you just remind me, I got to make a mental note of that. I got to start eating a little bit more of that.
If you had been a prototypical baseball player, who was your guy growing up? Who would you have been as a baseball player or athlete in general?
My favorite player growing up was Dale Murphy of the Atlanta Braves. I was a big Braves fan. Hank Aaron, when he was with the Braves, was just legendary with what he's done. And, I grew up in the 70s and really came, I was born in 73. So, I really got to understand sports more in the 80s when that I can go back and remember it. I watched a lot of 80s baseball with the Atlanta Braves, which means I watched a lot of bad baseball. Dale Murphy, I would say when I played baseball, because he was my favorite player. So when I got up to bat, Murphy used to do this little wiggle with his bat down low kind of set up, and I used to do that same little wiggle because I just thought I could play as good as Dale Murphy, and my wiggle might have been good, but my ability to hit the ball was nowhere close to his.
Well, we're gonna get you out of here with a couple more. You've been watching down the field pretty well. Old school R&B or new school music? What's in your Apple Spotify? What is it that you're jamming?
Oh, I'm old school, man. Give me an
Okay.
80s, 90s hip hop, R&B. I think the 90s might have been the greatest decade of music.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. I like a little funk now. You give me a little 70s, 80s funk. I listen to a little Funky Friday, WXPN in Philadelphia every Friday. It's
Yeah.
it's a good thing, but mostly, man, I'm listening to a lot of 80s, 90s hip hop, R&B.
First movie that, in the words of Ruffin McNeil, made your eyeballs sweat.
Juice.
Juice. Was it because of all the stuff that happened at the end? What was it that got you? What got you caught up in the emotions of Juice?
You know,
Great movie, by the way. Underrated movie, I think, by the way.
it was an underrated movie, and I can't tell everything about this story, but those that will listen to this will understand. I was watching Juice as a way to get away, in a way to hide out at the time because I was pledging my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, at the time, and I was in the
I
movie.
know you noobs.
Yeah, so I was in the movie, watching the movie, and it is intense and all that, but I also had this other thing kind of going on in my life. Unfortunately, one of the brothers who were already in the fraternity saw me at the movie, and as a young person, that was probably not my best mood to try to be out and about at that particular time. But I just remember being at the movie and just watching it because it was so intense, and I had this intense thing going on in my life that I was trying to get my hands around at the same time. So it just really, I was sweating in two different ways at that movie.
Man, that's great. Well, Scottie, it's been good having you on, man. We really appreciate it. We'll have you back, especially as we get closer to bowl season and some of the things that start happening. We'll definitely have to have you back on Chopping It Up with Buck. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Caddy, so I always had to drive. No hands when I'm driving, hold it